He's mad as hell, and he's live in our studio.
We're against greed, and we're against the fact that 1% could get 9 slices of the pie, and the other 99% are supposed to fight over the last slice. That is un-American. That is not democracy.
The self-proclaimed champion of the 99%. He's made a career and a fortune fighting for the little guy. Now, Michael Moore is here with me to take your questions about the economy.
I've always considered myself a member of the middle class. Now I consider myself a member of a lower class.
The election.
We still have a Republican Party that's taking care of the rich. We have a Democratic Party that's taking care of the poor. People in the middle are being totally forgotten here.
And yes, those protesters.
The happy day for me is when I'll be unemployed, when I don't have to make another one of these goddamn movies or write another one of these books. When everybody is, the real people of this country are in charge, and I don't have to do any of this anymore. That's my nirvana.
Tonight, a crucial town hall event. Who's to blame? And who's going to fix what's broken in America? This is a special edition of Piers Morgan Tonight. Good evening. You're looking at live protesters on Wall Street and in Oakland, California. And tonight here in New York, I'm joined by Oscar-winning filmmaker Michael Moore, pin-up for the dispossessed and die-hard supporter of the Wall Street protests. Last time you came on the show a few weeks ago, you promised to come back to tackle in front of a live audience the questions tormenting America and the grievances of the ordinary people left high and dry by America's economic crisis. Those people, the self-styled 99%, are here tonight, many of them. They want to know why, when America faced its biggest challenges in decades, the rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and they were left bearing the burden. We'll find out who the Wall Street protesters are, what they want, whether they're going to get it, and try to answer the burning question, how do we fix America? We'll be taking questions from right here in the studio, over the phone, and on Twitter, providing a real-time response to big-time problems. If you're on Twitter now, get hold of me at Piers Morgan, or use the hashtag #OccupyPiersTonight. And we want it to be lively, and we want to get some answers. Michael, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I just say, first of all, thank you for letting the people in to Time Warner here and to have this chance.
Well, I said we do it, and
you
I
did,
think it's going to be a very interesting exercise.
I think, and I know it's not quite America's Got Talent.
We may have a few red buzzers tonight, I can tell you that.
More like America's Got No Middle Class left.
Let's cut to the quick. Who are the 99%? Who are the 1%?
Well, the 1%, they have about 40% of all the wealth in this country. The 99% are essentially, most of them, people who you used to call the middle class. And of course, a good chunk of them, sadly, in this country, are part of the poor. We have 46 million people living in poverty right now in this country. But this large middle class that we used to have, people that worked for a living, that put in a hard day's work, got their pay for that, and with that pay, were able to purchase a home, were able to send their kids to college, had health care, had a vacation time, had all these things that just a decent middle-class life. And those in charge, the 1%, decided that they needed to take some of that away because the 1% didn't have enough money. They needed more money. And this level of greed that's taken place here, that's really started back almost 30 years ago. I say this started really when Reagan fired the air traffic controllers. That was the first volley that was thrown at the middle class, and they have succeeded over these 30 years of making life harder and harder and harder for people.
And let me ask you this. Is this really a protest against capitalism, as some have been saying, or is it a protest against capitalist greed and abuse of capitalism?
Well, it depends on who you ask. When you say it's 99%, that means there's a whole bunch of reasons why people feel part of this movement right now. Yes, some people, this is a protest against capitalism. So for some other people, they like capitalism, but they think capitalism has become really a system of greed and needs to be reformed, or we need to put the controls back on it that used to be there. And then a whole bunch of people have very specific concerns. Students who are saddled now with incredible debt that they won't pay off until their 40s. Millions are in foreclosure right now. And millions more, their homes are underwater. They're trapped essentially as prisoners in their home. They will not be able to sell it. They are stuck there essentially, or they could file for bankruptcy and have their credit ruined and then have more of their life ruined. We have 50 million people with no health insurance in this country. So you have all the people who've been, so the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country are medical bills. So you have that whole group of people. You have people who are concerned about our educational system, that we've placed this on the lowest rung of our ladder, and as a result, right now in this country, we have 40 million functional illiterate adults in this country. 40 million that cannot read and write above a fourth grade level.
We've established.
So it's a whole wide range.
It's a mess, and everybody knows it's a mess, and we're going to try and solve some of the issues as the evening goes on. Here's an immediate tweet for you, just to show that we're impartial on this show. This is from at Gateway Patriot, a question for Michael Moore. You've benefited personally greatly from capitalism, yet you're one of its biggest critics. How do you square that?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, really, I'm here talking against my own interests.
Yeah, what's the matter with you?
What's wrong with me?
You crazy man. It's a good point.
So
I mean, you're in the 1%, right?
I'm not in the 1%, no, but I am, yes.
Probably 0.2%.
No.
You're one of the most successful filmmakers in the country.
No, I'm not. For a documentary filmmaker, I do very well.
Well, now you're splitting hairs.
Well, no, there's a big difference between a documentary and Avatar.
I want to establish you. Yeah, there is.
Okay.
There is.
So don't. I'm not that. But let me just say that
you know the criticism. There are people watching.
No, I feel blessed.
Michael Moore,
I have a high school education.
Rich guy.
I'm able to do what I want to do, and I have the money to make my films in exactly the way I want to make them. I don't answer to anyone. I can't be bought, because these people have spent $10 at the movie theater to go buy tickets to my movies, or $3 at the old Blockbuster when there was a Blockbuster. And as a result of that, I get to keep making these movies. But here's the thing, because I've had a peek behind the curtain. Because these books I write, these movies I make, are made for essentially large corporations. And the only reason they allow this to happen is because I make them a lot of money. And
yourself.
And no, they don't want me actually to have any money. I'm a dangerous person with a lot of money. Because the fact that I make money, what am I going to do with my money? Spend it, at Brooks Brothers? I put a lot of my effort in trying to change the system and to make these films. And that I'm sure those in charge don't like that part, but they do like the part where I make them money, and they're convinced. This is what I really think it is. They're convinced that the people out there, the people watching this on TV, even if they see my movie, they're not going to revolt. They're not going to stand up. They're not going to get involved. They're so convinced that they have dumbed down and numbed the American public to a point of utter despair that they can't get off the couch to become active politically. And they have made a huge mistake letting me on TV and putting my films in theaters and publishing my books. And I'm so grateful for that.
I might have made a terrible mistake putting you on TV, but
Don't you know that's rule number one? Never put me on live.
I like you on live. It's dangerous, unpredictable. But I just want to pin you down on one thing.
Work tomorrow.
I need you to admit the bleeding obvious. I need you to sit here and say, I'm in the 1%. Because it's important.
Well, I can't, because
for
I'm
the
not.
validity of your argument. You are that.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
You're not in the 1%?
Of course I'm not. How can I be in the 1%?
Because you're worth millions.
No, that's not true. Listen, I do really well. I do well. But what's the point, though? Isn't that?
That's because I find it more interesting if you're in the 1%, because I think you probably are, you qualify, that you are railing against a lot of capitalist ideals.
Well, then, if you believe that about me, then that's really something, isn't it?
I'm asking if you accept
that even though I do well, that I don't associate myself with those who do well. I am devoting my life to those who have less and who've been crapped upon by this system. And that's how I spend my time, my energy, my money on trying to upend this system that I think is a system of violence. It's a system that's unfair to the average working person of this country. And it was a mistake to ever give me a dime from the day Time Warner actually gave me money to buy Roger and Me.
Eventually.
No, but this place essentially was where I began.
Let's go to somebody who is in the 99.
I hope they rue the day that they ever allowed me up on the movie screens.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
I want to to go to our first question. This is from Monica. Where's Monica?
Hi. Hi, Piers. Hi, Michael.
Now, before you say anything, I just want to confirm a new CNN poll among moderates, 32% viewed the Occupy Wall Street protests favourably, 26% were against it, a third or fewer weren't sort of sure either way. Where do you see? You've been down there. One of the big questions I hear about Occupy Wall Street is, what are they really protesting about? What is this movement at its core really trying to achieve? What do you think the answer is?
Well, for me, I mean, I am a person with a master's degree who's been unemployed since I graduated, haven't had health care for years. So I understand where the anger and the frustration of many Americans is coming from. I get that angle, and that resonates with me. But I'm also concerned about corporate influence on government in particular, and I know that's a message that a lot of protesters are talking about. And in particular, for me, it's for corporate influence on the criminal justice system. But when I go down to Occupy Wall Street, the feeling that's there is not one of anger, it's not one of frustration, it's a feeling of hope, it's a feeling of optimism, it's a feeling that this can make a difference this time, this is really working, and it's like what Michael said, we can actually do it. Maybe this is the time that we can actually change things, we can actually make things change.
Do you feel personally angry to the people that work in Wall Street? Are you instinctively against, and do you feel the mood of the people there is against very wealthy bankers and so on? Do they blame them for what happened, or is it more general than that? Are there lots of people to blame?
I think there is some of that. I think there is some feeling of personal enmity, but I think it's more, the general feeling is more of, what can we do? How can we all be inspired together to make social change? And I think that is the general takeaway, at least that I'm feeling
Michael,
now.
did you share that? Is it a more optimistic thing? I mean, I'm surprised by that.
Oh, why? Because
I sort of got a sense that it was angrier than this.
Well, underneath all of that, yes, there's a general anger about what's happened to our country. We love our country. And so we're very upset that the promise of America seems now to be something way back in the distant past. And it doesn't seem like
a pie chart here, if you can, of blame between the members of the public for overspending, for getting into too much credit, for buying stuff they couldn't afford, the government for the policies that may have precipitated the economic crisis, and the Wall Street element of this. If you were slicing a pie up, how would you fairly do it?
Okay, there's nothing scientific behind this.
No.
But I'm
not going to hold you to the exact figures, but just as a sort of a sense of where you think the majority of blame lies here.
Okay. I think I would say that 100% of it is the fault of corporate America. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I don't assign any blame to Washington, D.C. Because the politicians in Washington, D.C. are paid for by corporate America. So they're just the employees. They're there to act as the servants of Wall Street. So why would you blame the servants for the situation? You blame the core. You blame what is essentially the base of where this problem comes from. As far as blaming the American people, I mean, haven't they been through enough, really?
Well, they have.
I mean,
but I would take issue, Michael, though.
Because no, listen,
they're not to blame at all. No one in America overspent. Nobody went against probably all the guidelines from their parents. Don't spend what you can't afford. I mean, there has to be some sense of self-blame, doesn't there? Personal responsibility.
Well, yeah, personal responsibility is a good thing, and we have our main personal responsibility in this is to be responsible citizens. And the important thing that you have to be as a citizen is you have to be active and you have to be involved. And you have to, that's what this Occupy thing has happened all across the country, because people are standing up and being responsible citizens. To blame people whose wages have not gone up, you know, over more than 1%, and when you account for inflation and everything, but in 30 years, there's been stagnant wages. People here, I mean, do you remember how it was with your parents? How they had paid vacations? Do you remember paid vacations? You know, all they get now is, you got to cut back on your health care benefits. We're going to take away these benefits. We're taking away these sick days. We're taking away this. We're taking away that. And now, oh, by the way, we're going to move your job to Mexico. That's what everyone's had to tolerate and put up with.
Hold that thought. Going to go a quick break. Come back and talk about President Obama. Has he got the right ideas, perhaps belatedly, to get America out of this mess, because that's going to be key to how the next few months and years progress.